Hey guys, what's going on? I hope all of you had a great weekend. Now, I wanted to get into this one topic that I've thought about for quite some time, and it's regarding forecasters that have great track records that are ignored by the mainstream media. I'm also going to uncover why I believe these individuals are either blacklisted from the mainstream media or simply ignored. Number one, this forecaster's name is Mike Status. He has his own research firm where he gives out all of the sophisticated content to Wall Street and individual and sophisticated investors. And if you look at his track record since 2006, he's been calling for, number one, this real estate crash that we all saw in 2008. He wrote that in the book. He wrote down that here are some stocks to short, and those stocks were great shorts. In addition to that, he also talked about in 2009, you could potentially see a bottom in the stock market near 6,400. So he called the bottom of the stock market. For that, he called a crash of real estate. And in addition to that, I was reading up on what he said about the Eurozone. In 2010, he said that, you know what, it may not be a good idea to be in gold and silver from a trading perspective. That's how I look at him. He's more of a short-term get-in, get-out guy. And he was also talking about how you'd see problems in Greece, in the Eurozone, because of what was going on, their debt levels, and how there were problems and how the Eurozone was created, right? Because you can't have one interest rate for all those countries with different cultures and different debt levels. So he called the Eurozone crisis. 5 years later, when he made that statement in 2010, you could see what chaos is going on in Greece right now. And we probably will see a Greece exit. I don't know when. If I were to guess, I'd say that it'd be in October. So Mike Status was pretty good in his calls since 2006. He also makes calls about when to get in and get out for the Dow. He was pretty good from 2009 until 2014. Now he doesn't show his content on his website, or as much. So I can't confirm how he's been doing this year in 2015. Now, another forecaster I want to get into is Martin Armstrong. Martin Armstrong is a really interesting character, right? This individual uses the cycle of pi to predict all these crashes in the economy. And he also gives timetables when to get in and get out. Now, if you want to look at some of his track record successes or where he has been successful, he has called for the 1987 crash to the day, the 1989 Nikkei crash to the day, and he used that using the pi cycle. So what he states is that every 3,041 days, based on his analysis of economic history, you tend to see a major economic crisis. And in addition to that, every 8.6 years, or 3,141 days, aka take that number, divide by 1,000, you get the number of pi. So he's using pi to determine that there is a shift in capital movement every 8.6 years. And between that 8.6 years, 4.3 years, you tend to see different capital movements as well. And it makes sense because every 4 years or every 8 years, depending on whether you want to look at the long pi cycle or the shortened cycle, investors change their habits of investing, right? And in 1989, he figured out the Nikkei crash pretty much to the day. 1998, he figured out the Russian ruble crash to the day using the cycle of pi. Because he took 8.6 years after the Japanese Nikkei crash. It was ridiculous, right? He got it within the week. And then 2007, while he was in jail, what happened then? You had subprime. And what's next? He's calling for a sovereign debt crisis right now in 2015. So, and that's actually October of 2015. So if you look at it, it's quite incredible of how he picks all of this information out using the cycle of pi. I mean, there's more to him. I mean, he also looks at technical analysis. He has this sophisticated computer model, and this computer model actually has figured out all of these trends. I don't know what he does on the back end, but he's a programmer on the side as well, which has enabled him to be very successful. Now, Martin Armstrong, you have to look at this individual and how he was put in jail. He says that he's a political prisoner. I need a little more information, or I need to do a little more research before I do agree with this statement. But if you look at it, I wouldn't be surprised at what he's saying, because you have to look at the fact that he tried to. The CIA actually came to him in the late 90s saying that, hey, you know what? We want to buy this computer program from you. He refused. And then later on, he was indicted for defrauding Japanese investors. I read a piece about him in the New Yorker, and in this piece, it was stated that this was a bizarre case. Once again, I have to do a little more research before I make an assertion that, hey, you know what? This guy was completely innocent. I mean, in previous videos, I have said that, hey, I feel that he was being set up. But once again, I just need to be a little more careful in what I'm saying, that, hey, this Martin Armstrong character, not sure whether or not what he's saying is actually true, but I wouldn't be surprised. Just need to clear that up. So, long story short, why are these individuals like Mike Status and Martin Armstrong, why are they being ignored by the mainstream media? And I read this somewhere. Someone wrote about Martin Armstrong and why he's being ignored by the mainstream media. And that is because they don't want people to actually know individuals who actually have a good track record. And the reason is for national security purposes, one of them. Because suppose you have all these criminals abroad, terrorists, whatever, enemies of America. They tend to get this information. What will they use this information for? I don't know. It could be used against the United States in some way, shape, or form. That was one theory posted. But the second theory, I think I agree more with, and that is, it is to make sure that the sheep that are watching CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox Business, etc., the alternative media, the main goal of Wall Street is to make sure that these guys are on the opposite side of the trade while Wall Street profits off of these guys. I actually believe that statement to be more true than more of a national security element, which could be a case, but not quite sure. So the government media complex doesn't want them on, and that's because, hey, you know what? Because Wall Street is the game in town. They only want Wall Street, or Wall Street only wants themselves to be profitable, not these guys in the middle class. Because if people start to realize that, hey, they're individuals that can accurately forecast the markets and make a ton of money, then what's the point of watching all these programs on CNBC and whatnot? So that's all I have to say on why these forecasters are being ignored. And some people may have negative opinions about Mike Status because he's not politically correct. Some people may say that Martin Armstrong is a criminal, he defrauded these guys. Regardless of what you think about these guys, you have to look at long periods of time. They have been successful. They have made money. And they have made decent calls. I mean, they may not be right all the time, but comparatively speaking to all these guys that you see on mainstream media, they have been more right than wrong. And if you look at Armstrong, he's been more right for the past few decades. And he actually has been calling for deflation since, I think, 2009, 2010. Initially, he was in the hyperinflation camp, but he changed his tune once he had more evidence, from what I gather. So he's not going to be right 100% of the time. I mean, if you look at Mike's status, he thought it would initially be an inflationary depression, but then he also slowly but steadily changed his tune. He actually, I remember listening to him one time and he said that. He thought it was going to be inflationary, but he changed his tune once he saw the data. So once again, these guys are not going to be 100% right all the time with their forecasts, but more times than not, they will be right. And I think it's really important for individuals to actually note that and to stay away from the mainstream media just for investing purposes. So anyways, guys, leave your thoughts below, share your comments, and I'll do another video sometime soon. Thanks.